Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alrighty everyone, welcome to my July wrap-up. Look at us here today. It is a quiet little Wednesday morning when I'm filming this. If you don't know, in my monthly wrap-ups, I don't talk about every book that I've read because, as you'll see, I do read a pretty significant amount every month. And I do weekly talk about every book that I read. So if you check out this playlist up here, you can see all the books that I've read so far in 2024, which, according to my calculations, is about 290 of them. Wow, that's crazy. 290 of them. And I talk about every single one in my weekly wrap-ups. So that being said, if there's any from this month you want to know, if you look at the last 4 wrap-ups, that'll have all the books for July in it. Well, and the coming week, because there's a few books that I finished this week. Have my energy drink, so let's get into it. So what will this video be then, in case you're new? I'm going to go over my stats for the month because some people still like to hear that part of it. And then I will gush and praise and gaga over my favorite 5 books that I read this month. So yeah, this will be like a top favorite reads and then, you know, what my stats were and everything. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into that. Before I do though, if you would just take a second to please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I just passed 22,000 subscribers, which, you know, is definitely small fries in some ways, but for me, it's everything. Like literally, I've been able to make this my business from you guys who love what I do here. And I will never, never, never take that for granted. I'm so, so thankful. So, but if you are a silent watcher, you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that button. And as we're watching this, leave a comment or, you know, send me an emoji, something like that. It all helps in the algorithm. Summertime is a bit tougher around the channel, just so you know, because people are living their life. Imagine that. They're not inside watching TV or whatever, but any engagement is very helpful for the channel. So let's go ahead and dive in. And this month, we had my best reading month of the year, which is crazy. That's amazing. I read 45 books this month, which was a total of 16,649 pages, which is awesome. The formats that I read or listened to these was I had 18 ebooks, 15 audiobooks, 13 physical books, and 21 of those were either e-arcs or ALCs. I consider them both arcs. So still not slowing down with the arcs anytime soon. And August doesn't look any better, which, I mean, I shouldn't say like any better. A few months back, I was trying to pull back on how many arcs and advanced things I was reading so that I could have more freedom to read what I wanted to. But you know what? I just haven't done so well at that. And I'm just embracing it. I'm just embracing it because I do love taste testing books and reviewing them for you guys, obviously. So though sometimes that can lead to a little bit of frustration when I don't quite have the freedom to just read whatever I want, I make time, as we'll see. You know, I make time for things when I really want them. And I enjoy getting to discover new authors and sharing them with you guys. That is my purpose. So anyway, that was a bit of editorializing I didn't need to do. But the subgenres of these books were 21 contemporaries. Oh dear Lord. Basically, half of my reading was contemporary this month, which was nuts. 4 were dark. 3 were dystopian, 5 were erotic, 4 was fan fiction. See, that's something I made time for this month. I didn't make time for some of that. 2 were historical, and 1 was paranormal. The ratings of these books were, there was 2 6-star reads. Now, both of those were rereads, so they're nothing fresh I'm adding. They were 6-star rereads that I did for Patreon. There was 12 5-star books, 9 4.5 stars, 12 4 stars, 7 3.5 stars, and then 1 3-star, 1 2-star, and 1 DNF. So that is what that was for July. So not too shabby at all. I will say, like I said, I made some time for fan fiction because I have such a lovely library of fan fiction built up in my Kindle, almost 200 unread ones. And I do want us to have a fan fiction readathon before the end of the year. and I want some new ones to recommend. So I'm working on those. And I'm very happy that I did, because one of my favorite reads was a fan fiction this month, which is great. It's been a long time since a fan fiction has made it into my top reads. And mostly just because I have not read the amounts that I have in previous years, for sure. But I do have a little surprise for everyone. But at the end of this week, I have a new fan fiction recommendation video going up, because again, I haven't made one in a while, mostly because I didn't have enough to make another video of, right? So it will be going up on Saturday, and it will be a fan fiction recommendation video. So definitely have been getting more into that. But anyway, let's get into, as I said, our single dad, single parent smorgasbord that was my favorites this month. So number one that I want to share was Mad Love by Willow Astor. And this book was just an absolute joy, absolute treasure. My first Willow Astor. I love it when new to me authors make it onto my favorites list, and we do have a couple this month. And this one was a surprise single dad, that's becoming my new favorite thing too. I've read a few of those this month where it isn't the heroine who is the baby mama of the child that he discovers. So we don't have to have any anxiety of the heroine having kept a secret, or her being the one who made it a secret baby, which, as you know, is a huge pet peeve of moi. I do not like that. It's very rarely that one of those books will rate well for me, because I think there's very few reasons to keep your baby a complete secret. But with Mad Love, we have our wonderful hero, Weston, who discovers that he has a 2-year-old son that he had no idea about. He's a professional football player, and he gets a call from a hospital that his baby's in the hospital. And he's like, "Ma'am, nurse person, I do not have a baby. I don't know what you're talking about." And they're like, "Well, you're on the birth certificate for this little boy." So he's like, hold the phone, and he rushes there, only to discover that a woman that he had a one-night stand with, about a year ago, has died in a car accident and left behind his 2-month-old son. And that is very sad. It's very tragic. The only reason he was notified is because A, she did put his name on the birth certificate, and B, the birth of that child had happened at that hospital, so they were able to look up the birth certificate. So they were able to reach out to him. And when he arrives there is also his son's aunt, who she was told that Weston didn't want anything to do with his son. So her sister lied. Her sister was afraid that because of the mess that her life was, that Weston would try to take the baby away. So he never told him about this baby. And so we have this aunt and sister to the deceased who does not trust this man, who wants to get her nephew away from him, but she doesn't have any legal hold on her nephew, and Weston does, being the parent who is on the birth certificate. But luckily for her, even though she's very begrudging to it in the beginning, Weston knows nothing about being a dad. He does have good family though, but he knows nothing about being a dad, and he doesn't want to be enemies with this woman. He needs her help. He's like, "You have known him since he was born. You've been there for him. I want to get to know him, and I want your help." And so very begrudgingly and with a lot of mistrust, she agrees to move into his home and basically be like the nanny / co-caregiver for her nephew now. So, and then what's beautiful about this is they become, roommates and co-parents, and they become friends very quickly, because she really does believe him that he had no idea. And she becomes, pretty discouraged with the fact that her sister never tried to tell him, so there's a lot with that. So I enjoyed this one so much. Obviously it's in my top 5. You'll hear me say that a lot. I enjoyed it so much. Well, duh, it's your favorites, Jen. But this was just such a treat. It was so good. And the whole series is going to be single dads. So it's I believe it's called the Single Dad's Guide Playbook, or the Single Dad's Playbook, I think is what the series will be. And I think they're all going to be football players. So there's actually a group within the series. And in the beginning of the book, Weston is teasing them for having their dad group. and now he's a part of it. And so the playbook aspect of this is actually that they write him like a how-to guide with advice for being a single dad, which is great. So yeah, I enjoyed this. This was like a 3 on the spice scale. It was a slow burn between them. I will say there are parts of this where the heroine feels very frustrating at times, of course, because she doesn't think she wants to be a part of this like football star lifestyle. And again, there's a lot of mistrust for her to go over, and also a lot of guilt that she's raising her dead sister's son with the man who, you know, her sister would have liked. So yeah, there's some angst with that, but we got to have some conflict, right? So next favorite was Undeniably Forbidden by J. Salmon. So this author was new to me earlier this year with the first book in this series, and I had another ALC of this one. So I got this with Must Love Audio, and this one is a doctor series, these wealthy doctors. And this one, he's already a single dad at the beginning, and he needs a nanny. And at the very beginning of it, he's actually having a night out. He has someone babysitting, and he's getting a night to himself, and he meets this girl in a bar. They have amazing chemistry, just flirting up a storm, and they have a one-night stand, of course, super sexy, super hot. But who should show up the next day for an interview, kind of, which I'll explain in a second, but the woman he just hooked up with, who is very much younger than him, and who is very awkwardly supposed to be his new nanny. And he already is a big grump about who nannies his kid. He's very protective. His family, though he's a doctor, it's not like he's like a famous celebrity, but his family is very well known, so he's very protective of his child. And this girl, she is the younger sister of his best friend, who he hasn't seen in many years because she's actually been living in Europe, and she's an artist, and so she was over there, and now she's back and trying to get her career started on her own outside of Europe, and she needs kind of a job to do while she's doing her art, which, yes, because a lot of artists, you can't just jump into full-time being an artist. It's very rare that they can. But now that he realizes this is the woman that he had amazing sex with and is going to be living under his roof, he's like, this isn't going to go well. Like, we can't have this. But he can't have an excuse not to have his friend's sister be his nanny without explaining like what happened then, and that would be bad as well. So it's a scenario we've seen many times before, but it's tried and true, okay? She immediately connects with his daughter, and so he doesn't really have a choice but to at least give her a trial at being the nanny, and that means she moves into his house, and the temptation is there. Now, I, of course, like this one, but a few unique things that make it good. Number one, he's a child surgeon, so immediate clout and just adoration for that. That's a very hard job to do. He also, you know, definitely a grump, as we said, but the chemistry between these two was written so well, because something that can be difficult in a romance that starts with a one-night stand and starts with a really good sexy time is to then have a big gap of them not being together again. But also, like, you've also like popped the tension already because we know how good they are at sex. So it can be difficult to pace that. I thought this was done very well because a lot of his grumpiness and guardedness is very understandable. He's a bit too mean. He's a bit too mean. And we do call him out on him being so vicious about what he's saying, because he definitely does that as like porcupine tactics to protect himself. But his daughter's so sweet. We really forgive him for that. And our heroine doesn't take any bullshit, because honestly, she doesn't have to. Like, she could be staying with her parents instead of staying, you know, in his house. She just doesn't want to. So that does give her some power of like, I don't have to put up with this. You're not my only option. So yeah, she also does have a bit of a past she's running from with the reasons why she left Europe, and, you know, a situation with a previous lover that's, you know, made her distrust her talents and things like that. So there's some story, there's some meat on the bones there for that one. But I just enjoyed this. I feel that overall, this is a series with pretty low angst. This one definitely had more angst than the first one, but there was some really beautiful stuff with the heroine from the first one is best friends with this hero, and she is the one who, that was undeniably convenient where they are having a baby, and so they do have a new baby in that one. And with our hero being a child surgeon, there does come a time where he needs to use those skills for his friend and her child, and that was such an emotional scene. Like, I knew we weren't actually going to be in danger of this new baby. Like, this is still a romance series. This isn't Grey's Anatomy, even though there are parts of it that are like that. We weren't going to have to worry about that. But it was such a really powerful scene, and I happened to be driving while listening to it, and I totally, like, was tearing up because it was just so, like, it was good. So yeah, that one, definitely, this was a 5-star. This was medical. It was a nanny, opposites attract, age gap to make it nice and sexy, and this was about a 3.5 on the spice scale, so just nice and toasty where we like it. Okay, now our next single dad was another surprise you're a dad story, and this one and Mad Love are like tied for my tippy top of the year. Like, when I make my what was my favorite book of the year or favorite book of the month, this was way up there. This one was very close to a 6-star read, just like so close, and that was Quiet Beautiful Things by Samantha Christie. And this also is an author debuting in my favorites. I have not read her before. I have heard good things. Plenty of my friends like Samantha Christie. I have heard very angsty things, and very, I've heard of some of her storylines that have terrified me because I am a big baby, even though I cry anyway. Even when stuff's happy, I'm a big baby for certain storylines, and so I have steered away from her. But I may not be able to do that anymore because this book was wonderful. So this book I also really liked reading for, because July was Disability Pride Month. In case you didn't know, I did do a disability recommendations video, and I tried to read a good amount of books this month that had some of that. Not for any performative reasons, it's just I like those, and so the reminder that it was Disability Pride Month was like, this is a good month to really like read a lot of those. And this one has deaf representation in it, and I, as someone who's not in that community, but I was parts of, like, I was going to get a minor in sign language 10 plus years ago, and my life ended up changing and going a different way. But that being said, that doesn't mean I am any part of the community at all, but I did have some observance of it, shall we say. And I feel that from the knowledge that I have, that this author brought up a lot of the struggles that I had seen brought up as concerns and discussions like that. And so some of the angst that the heroine has, who our heroine is deaf, and also the child that we will meet is deaf, some of the concerns she had were ones I had heard people express before. So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, in this one, we have our hero here, who, this is another, again, surprise child, when he gets contacted by a PI, and there's this woman who is going into rehab, who, it's a possibility of 5 possible men being the father of her, I believe, 4 or 5-year-old child, who is deaf and nonverbal, and basically also like mute, as in no communication being attempted at all. And it's so heartbreaking. It's just so heartbreaking that this child was left in this state, because the family never tried to get her that help at all. So he is this young man, I think he's 26, he's just starting in the family business, and he's young and free and all these things, and he learns about this little girl. Now, when he gets asked to provide his DNA, because they're like, you could be the father, he's like, yeah, I was kind of a man whore in college, it definitely could be. So he steps up, provides his DNA, and it's a match. And then this 5-year-old girl is getting brought to him, because the reason why it's happening so quickly, not only is this woman going to rehab, but the grandparents, who we learn is the grandpa and step grandma of this child, don't want to deal with her. So the mother is trying to get help, is what we hear, but she has no family who will take care of this child. So if he won't take his daughter, then she's going into emergency foster care. And he, completely overwhelmed, but he's like, I don't want my child to have to do that. I will figure it out. So very overwhelmed, very scared. But again, he has great family. that teared me up too. And I mean, of course, like my family would do this too, but the way his family is just like, oh my gosh, let's go get our toys. Let's go get everything. Like, this is so exciting. We have a grandchild we didn't know about. We are here to help. Like, everybody just completely jumps in right away, which is beautiful to see. And so he gets this child and he discovers just how scary it is. And so the social worker says, like, we do have a deaf advocate who will be coming to see you and visit you and help you with her. But they tell me, he's like, it's pretty bad. Like, I'm just warning you, like, it's pretty bad. She has no way to communicate. And can you just imagine how overwhelming and how scary that is for that little girl? But I mean, also for him, like how scary that is for him of like, he wants to immediately love this child and do right by her, but just also the terror of it all, you know, like so much. So where our heroine comes into this is, if you've read other books by Samantha Christie, I will tell you that our heroine is the daughter of the Stone Brothers series. So her mother was pregnant with her when she met the dad, who was like a doctor. I didn't read that series, but it's in the Stone series, okay? I will read the series now. I promise I will. But she is deaf, and she has a, I don't remember what her degrees are, but her current role now, she's this deaf advocate, and she's there to help kids and families and everything. So when she shows up at the house for the first meeting with him, she's there with an interpreter, and she sees the state of this home, which the child has just gotten there. His family has bought all this stuff, and just like he has stuff all over his house, and it's chaos, and he's not able to communicate with his daughter, so it's crazy. And when our heroine first meets him, she's judging him hardcore and is like, you are not taking care of your daughter well. I'm going to get social services in here. You are mistreating her. And he's just like, whoa, lady, I'm the one that, like, no, she's been brought to me because she was being neglected. Like, I just found out, like, so he has to explain the whole situation. And our heroine, who, you know, is immediately on guard for this little girl and is like, wow, this family isn't taking care of her well enough. He's like, no. I want to. Aren't you supposed to help me do that? Like, why are you, you know, so they have this miscommunication in the beginning of it. And she very quickly is like, I apologize. I assumed. I've seen a lot of cases where this is, and I was getting protective. And he's like, that's okay, but like, help me. I want to help her. I don't know what to do. So these two, who, by the way, I didn't mention this, they actually had kind of a bit of they were eye fucking each other at the grocery store not too long ago. So she actually lives in this town, not that far from him. And he never had spoke to her. And, you know, she had just kind of been daydreaming. She doesn't date hearing guys. That's her whole like thing, which again, if you know stuff about the deaf community, that is a legitimate thing of like, can you be truly appreciated by a deaf partner or a hearing partner if you're deaf? But that will become an issue later on, not in the beginning. But from the jump, though, after we get over that initial situation, it's just these two trying to discover ways to communicate with the little girl, learning sign language. His whole family starts learning it, which of course they should, but it's also just so beautiful because she's seen so many families who don't try to do that. And so it was just beautiful. The whole thing was so great. And watching this little girl learn what words are, like, she has been taught like no words or any form of communication other than like pictures. And so it is absolutely devastating, but it's also just so beautiful to watch her be given that, to watch the world literally open up for her. Can you imagine if you were deaf and also couldn't read or write, and you don't know sign, you weren't taught sign language, there's no way to share what you're feeling or thinking or what your needs are? It was devastating. But I want to be clear, this book was not sad. It was hopeful. It was so beautiful. The situation this little girl is delivered to us in is devastating. It's not a sad book at all. It's all about the hope and about the beauty of, you know, learning communication and seeing that happen and all the opportunities that this little girl will have, and just immediately watching this man fall in love with his little girl. And like the first time, guys, the first time she realizes that he's her daddy and calls her daddy, knowing what dad means. Speechless. So, Jen, you love this so much. It's so great. Why wasn't it a 6-star read? Well, what I will say is that There's a tiny little plot line in here that was just completely unnecessary with the emotional weight and the struggle, and there's enough conflict just with life in this. There's also a side thing with the heroine and her past, which again, I haven't read the other series, so I know from my friends who have that it is kind of relevant to the past that this heroine had when she was a little girl and like that stuff. But it just was like not needed in this story. And even my friend who has read those books said that it wasn't really necessary in this one. So it just, all of that good stuff I'm talking about, we then had these weird parts thrown into it, and that was kind of frustrating. I believe that for the romance, there was enough conflict in, will this deaf woman be with a hearing man when, you know, what is she sacrificing? What is he sacrificing? Like all of these things. I think there was enough emotional conflict there that we didn't need to add a suspense element to this beautiful story. So that's why it sits as a 5-star. There's nothing that I'm like really throwing stones at with it. I just, with a 6-star read, I need that like extra oomph over the top. But this year I've been so picky with 6-star books that I feel like at the end of the year, there might be some that I gave 5 stars to that I'm still going to reread and see if they make my top list. Just because, you know, sometimes the more I talk about books with you guys and share them with you, the more I really sit with them and I might change my mind. And then at the end of the year, I need to like revisit them and see if they still hold up. That's the same way I feel about 6-star books. That's why I reread them, because sometimes I'm just struck dumb by a book when I read it and I don't see all the things. And when I reread it, I'm like, oh, this was good, but it still wasn't like the best. It can happen the other way as well. So this might be one that I like revisit it and do again. But fantastic intro to Samantha Christie for me. I will absolutely be reading the Stone Brothers. I know she has like a cowboy series too that was at one point on Audible Plus, so I want to check that out. Then we have A Single Dad, and this one is the fan fiction that I loved, okay? So this was a second look by River Rider, and as you know, I don't have a copy of this to share, and the only picture is one that I made, so there isn't a pretty picture to show you. But this was a Dramini. I know, we're shocked. We're just shocked. But I actually haven't read as much Dramini as normal, and this month I read 3 Draminis, or no, I read 2 Draminis, 1 Harry and Hermione. Yeah, I read a Harry and Hermione for the first time. Actually really liked it. See my next weekly wrap up to learn more about that. And then I read a Lucius and Hermione. But a second look is A Single Dad Draco and Hermione romance. And it begins with Draco, and Scorpius is about 8 months old and he's teething. Having a tough time, you know, as teething babies do. And Hermione happens to run into him outside the apothecary, and he's trying to get something that will help with the teething baby. And Hermione and Draco they haven't had any interactions. She knows that he's recently been divorced from, I think, Astoria in this one, and she actually helps Harry quite a bit with his kids because he is divorced from Ginny. They're actually divorced in this one, which I thought was an interesting choice, but we're still on good terms with the Weasleys. But it appeared in this one that like Ginny and Harry maybe got a bit like impulse married after the war, and now, you know, but they do have two of their kids, I believe. And so Hermione actually helps with Harry's kids a lot. The reason why I bring that up is when she runs into Draco, she sees how like harumphed he looks and just how desperate he looks to help Scorpius, who's just crying and crying and crying. And without much discussion, Hermione's like, could I help you? Could I offer something to help? And Draco, just being completely like desperate, is like, absolutely. I'm happy to take any help. So she makes a teething ring for Scorpius. So, you know, those little gel packs, she basically makes one and gives it to him. And immediately that's like helping Scorpius's gums, you know, feels so good. And Draco's just like, oh my gosh, thank you. What is that? And she's like, well, it's actually something muggles use. And sometimes the muggle things that are basic work the best. You know, everybody has babies, you know, just this kind of discussion. He's like, I mean, that's fine. I'm willing to accept whatever help. And he's like, we basically see that he's not as prejudiced against Muggle stuff as she might have thought he was before. And, you know, it's very clear he's grown up a lot and life is a lot different now. But just in this little interaction with them, push comes to shove, she actually invites him back to her flat because she's like, I have some other things that I use on the kids, on the Potter kids. If you'd like, I'm happy to share it with you. There's actually a medicine that Muggles use. It's a gum cream or whatever. She's like, I would be happy to give it to you and I'll get some more when I go visit my parents next or whatever. And he's like, sure, sounds great. So him and Scorpius actually go to her house. And she actually ends up getting James, baby James, because someone else who was watching him drops him off with her. So basically it's Hermione and Draco and Scorpius and then like James, and they end up all hanging out. Like he just doesn't leave. She gives him the gum cream and then he stays and watches like The Lion King with them. And it's just this crazy, just like what a weird day they have, right? But it was just so cool. And Scorpius was adorable. Hermione was holding him and just being like, oh, he's so cute. And her and Draco just have this amazing day. And so he goes home. And the next day he sends her flowers to work as a thank you. And now the flowers all like mean something. So this starts this thing of him sending her flowers with different meanings or whatever, which is just adorable. But they end up meeting up for lunch because he wants to thank her and also they want to see each other again. So they go out to lunch together and they have this, again, just great day. And it's very clear that they're attracted to each other, but they also don't quite know what to do with it yet. So there's just a few like different scenes of them kind of getting to know each other with this, and her also like talking with Harry and being like, it's Malfoy, like hang out with him. And very quickly Harry's like, well, you know, he isn't like he used to be. I mean, he's a great bloke, I guess. It just surprised me. And so Harry ends up being actually really like supportive of her wanting to date Draco. So that's what ends up happening. This is a slow thing, but eventually they're dating. And then the rest of the story is really just, you know, them slowly falling in love and then dealing with other people's reactions to it. There is also a little bit of a suspense later on with something that's happening with the Malfoy family home that Hermione ends up helping with. There is a like almost this type of fated mate connection that happens later on too, which I was just like here for it. And it was just so good. Okay, this was 5 stars, absolutely was. It was just so beautiful. Really, the way she fell in love with Scorpius at the same time. I mean, we love a story like that anyway. Plus, make it a fan fiction. It was just so good. So, as with any fan fiction I share, there's a link to it. You can go download it for free off of an archive of our own. The link is right down below. You can go to the site on your phone or a computer. You download it and you can send it to your Kindle, just like you would with any as you would with any ARC or device that you're getting off of BookFunnel. Like that's how it works. So you don't need to pay for it. It's free access to you. Go and enjoy it. It was beautiful and it's free. So there you go. Okay, now the last one I want to mention. This one is a accidental pregnancy. And this one isn't out yet. I received an ALC of this one. So I'm sorry, but when I picked my favorites, I had to put it in this month because that's when I read it, but it comes out on the 8th. I think it's the 8th of August. Let me check here. Yes, and that was Northern Twilight by Samantha Young. Yes. This is book 5 in the like Highland series, and this one is a second chance, childhood friends to enemies to lovers, and it was so good. The narration was Shane East and Zara Hampton Brown, who are one of my favorite pairings, whether they're doing historical or whatever, but they were both doing Scottish because they're both Scottish in this one. Anytime Shane East is going to be Scottish for me, I am a puddle on the floor. Just a romantic puddle. It's delightful. But this one is Callie and Lewis, and they were high school sweethearts, childhood sweethearts, really. Their families are really close. I believe the Adair series has its own series or whatever, which is when like his parents get together. This is the second generation series no matter what, but there's also a bit of like a time jump too from the end of Skies Over Caledonia to this one, which Skies Over Caledonia is actually about Callie's aunt, who her aunt is only, I think only like not even 10 years older than her, because there's a huge like age gap between those sisters, which is what they talk about in that one. But in this one, that baby I think is like 2 or 3 years old, I believe, from that one. So I think it's been like a 5-year jump or something like that from the last one. I'm not sure, but it's been a little bit of a time jump from the last one. And Callie and Lewis, they were in love when they were young. They broke up when they were 18. We don't fully know why, but they end up meeting up again in London when his sister, who's an actress, I think there's like a premiere or something, and they both get invited. I don't know. There's some party that they both get invited to, because she's still close with his family, kind of, even though she's obviously not with him anymore. They had both ended up moving away, but now they're both going to be back in the same town as well. She working for her mother's bakery. She actually became a pastry chef in France, and she's bringing some of those recipes and things back home to this small little town, which some people in town are stuck up about. I don't know why you wouldn't be excited for yummy pastries to be being brought to your town. I don't know what their problem is. And Lewis is an architect, and he's working for his father's firm. And he wasn't planning to do that, but after this one night stand with Callie, he realizes that it's time. It's go time. He always wanted another chance with her. And again, we'll find out and all those things in the story, but he is determined. And that's one of the things that made this book work so well for me, is that Lewis is willing to wait and willing to prove that they're different now. They were kids then. Now they're not. And all of those insecurities and problems that they had, they can get through them as adults. It's just going to take some convincing, because Callie is very hurt by their past. So, a couple things about this one. One, I'm not the biggest fan of lots of flashbacks. I say this. It's one of the reasons why second chance romances are difficult for me, because the number one thing that we do when we do a second chance is flashbacks. Very rarely are you going to find second chance romances without flashbacks. I'm just resigned to it. I really am. And so it's very difficult for that to be done well, in my opinion. However, with this one, I do think it was actually important, because the context of why they both were thinking such completely different things that led to their breakup when they were young, I feel like it is important to have those chapters and see their thoughts and not just listen to them like recount it, because they were deeply in love with each other. And their reasons for breaking up, while valid, were also very clearly due to inexperience and being young. And in my gut reaction was to blame one person particularly for this breakup. But when you look at it, it really is like, when you're young, you make mistakes. And because, I'll just say this, there was no cheating involved at all in this. That's not where it came from. So that being said, I was really willing to see what broke them up, right? When it's cheating that breaks them up, that's a whole nother story. When it's a second chance because of cheating, that's a whole nother track. But because it wasn't because of any infidelity, and it wasn't because of any like lie or anything, it was honest to goodness, like young people going through things and not being able to communicate it well, and like assuming things, which you would do when you were 18. So anyway, I'm not trying to make excuses for this book or whatever. I'm just telling you why this type of second chance worked for me. And also, the flashbacks don't last for the whole book. They last up until the point where they're confronting each other about why they broke up, and we're also seeing like why they broke up. And then we're like, okay, you both assume some things and you let this tear you apart, right? But what makes it work is that, number one, okay, I don't want to like spoil all of that part, but once the person who like I blame for it like realizes what they assumed or whatever, there is a really good, not grovel for it, because again, they don't really need to grovel for it to happen as teens and stuff, but there is a really good like change in their demeanor and how they handle everything, which is what I'm always looking for. And then number two, this is an accidental pregnancy, as I said, because besides their hookup that they had in London, there's another hookup that happens too, or is it just that one? It might just have been that one. I don't know, but their chemistry is crazy. And also, this is one of like, there are tattoos gotten in the name of someone else. And it's very clear that neither of them had forgotten the other one, and that, in my opinion, they were always going to make their way back to each other because they were soulmates. I'm saying it. They were soulmates, and they made mistakes as kids. But again, because those mistakes were not, like, there wasn't cheating, there wasn't lying, there was just honestly, like, we're at different places type of thing. You'll have to read it. You'll have to decide for yourself. But I loved it. This was also the case of, like, this accidental pregnancy that happens. It does happen a decent way, like, into the book, because it is that first hookup that is the, you know, impregnation part of it. So we do have to, like, you know, it takes a while till we find out about it. But the way they both act, the way their families act, the way all of it goes down, like, I loved it so much. I loved both of their families so much. Callie Ironside, so, like, the Ironsides and the O'Dares, like, they're just such loving people. So anyway, I talked a whole bunch. I gave this 5 stars. It was a 3 on the Spice scale. This was a beautiful, like, as I said, it's Scottish. The audiobook is delightful. I highly recommend that you get that because it will be available upon release. Friends to enemies to lovers. It was wonderful. And you could read this as a standalone if you want to. Again, I've only read book 4 and now 5 in the series, and I'm not lost with what's going on. So yeah. But anywho, I still found a way to talk for a really long time about only 5 books. But yeah, those were my 5 favorites of the month. If you'd like to know more about the books that were my least favorite, definitely check out those weekly wrap-ups. If you'd like to support the Book Refuge and what I do here, you can do that as simply as leaving a comment, leave some fireworks, let's say, because it was July, leave me some fireworks down below. Or if you'd like to more seriously commit to supporting the channel, I do have channel memberships where you get early access to videos, as well as there's a monthly live chat that's just with me and the other channel members, or I have a Patreon where there are exclusive reviews as well as voting on a book that I read and all the things like that. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope you have a wonderful August, and we'll see you next time. Bye.